Hi everyone, welcome to my channel MRCPCH Part 1 for beginners. So today's class is another demo class, and this was one of the topic of my introductory demo class, and some people who knocked me said that they missed it, so I decided to do the presentation again and record it. And so here it comes, and I decided to choose a clinical case from clinical case task case number 32. And I'm going to show you how to solve a case. Not only reading the case will benefit you, but how you can read it in such a way that it's going to stay in your mind for a long time, and it is also going to help you in the long run and solve other questions. Okay, and it will help you once you solve that question, it will be easier for you to solve the recalls as well. So let us start. So my case is chapter number 32, the boy with pointed toes. It is a case from the clinical case task book. So we have Jacob. Okay, I got the pointer. So we have Jacob, who is 22 months, and his parents are worried that their son is not yet walking independently. He was born in their home country of Poland. His mother describes the delivery as being difficult, but he was allowed home after 2 days of monitoring in hospital. He is generally healthy and there is no developmental concern beyond his walking. His father vaguely recalls a cousin who had problems and was in a wheelchair. In clinic, Jacob crawls and pulls to stand. He will cruise around furniture carefully and with a lot of persuasion takes a couple of steps with both hands held. He has a pronounced lumbar lordosis and a waddling gait and walks up on his tiptoes. He has good leg muscle bulk, stable hips and equal leg length. Reflexes are reduced in the knee but not the ankle, and plantars are downgoing. There is full passive dorsiflexion at the ankles. Okay, so what do we have here? We have read it, now let us summarize it. So we have Jacob, he's a 22-month-old baby. Let me get a good pointer, a darker color. Yeah. So we have 22-month-old boy and he's not yet walking. Now, is it a matter of concern? He is 22-month-old. Now, what is the limit for the walking of a baby? Until what age he should be able to walk? Okay, so we have a boy who is not 22-month-old. He is not yet walking independently. His delivery was difficult. There is a family history of somebody in the wheelchair, and in the clinic he's saying that even though he's 22-month-old, he's crawling and pulls to stand. There is hardly he's able to stand. He's cruising around the furniture and he has pronounced lumbar lordosis. He has a waddling gait here and he walks on his tiptoes and good leg muscle bulk. Okay, even though he is not walking well, but he has a good leg muscle bulk. Stable hips, equal leg length. Reflexes are reduced in the knee but not the ankle. That means reflexes are present. Knee reflexes are present but ankle reflex is absent. The plantars are downgoing. There is a full passive dorsiflexion at the ankles. That means the ankles are not in a good condition and knee reflex is only reduced but absent. Okay. So what do we have here? We have this case. Now, is it a matter of concern? Okay. So I have got this table from SOP page number 56 where it is said about the limit age by which milestone has to be achieved. So as you can see here, walk alone. The limit is 18 months. So a child should be able to walk alone by himself by the age of 18 months. If beyond 18 months, at 18 months, he is not able to walk alone, it is a matter of concern. Now look at our baby. He is 22 months old, yet he is not able to walk. So it is a matter of concern. So 22-month-old baby, not able to walk, has a waddling gait, there is a family history, calf muscles are good, and he's cruising around the furniture, he's not able to climb up the stairs, he's not able to climb properly, his knee reflexes are reduced, and ankle reflexes are okay, and then the stable hips are stable, he is equal leg length. So what are the differential diagnoses that you have to keep in mind? So remember this, whenever you solve any case, whenever you see a scenario, immediately you should have some differential diagnosis in your mind, and slowly you should be able to exclude each and every differential diagnosis. Even though you know the answer, even if you are sure about the answer, you should be able to exclude each and every case, each and every option, and reach your diagnosis. So seeing this case, we can think of a number of conditions where the child will present with delayed walking at 22 months old, wheelchair, there is reduced knee reflex, waddling gait. Okay, so what are the differential diagnoses that you can keep in mind? So I have certain differential diagnoses that I have in my mind. They are here. Neurological cause, right? It could be a neurological cause that the child is not able to walk for a very long time. It has been 22 months, still he is not able to walk. Then neurological, there can be upper motor neuron lesion, it can be lower motor neuron lesion. So what happens in case of upper motor neuron lesion? So among all the upper motor neuron lesion, we have cerebral palsy here. So cerebral palsy is a very common cause of delayed milestone, right? So we have cerebral palsy in upper motor neuron lesion. And in lower motor neuron lesion, it can be lower motor neuron lesion as well. It could be spinal muscular atrophy, spinal tumor, trauma. One more option, it could be spina bifida. So this child again presenting with waddling gait, delayed walking and everything. What could be the other cause? It could be neuromuscular disease. By NMD, I mean neuromuscular disease. What are the examples? DMD, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It could be myasthenia gravis. There are others such as Becker muscular dystrophy. Okay. Now it could also be some orthopedic related problems such as developmental dysplasia of the hip. So all these cases have some common presentation. What are they? There will be delayed milestone, that is delayed walking. The child will have waddling gait, or say they will have different kind of gait. The child is not able to walk. So from our case, we have all this differential diagnosis, and let us see how we can exclude everything here and find the right answer. Okay, so let's start. So the child, why I am saying neurological here is the child had his, first of all, there was a delayed walking, moreover, and there was the reflexes, knee reflexes were reduced. So in neurological, it could be upper motor neuron lesion or it could be lower motor neuron lesion. Now what happens in upper motor neuron lesion? In case of upper motor neuron lesion, what are the features that you will see if it is a upper motor neuron lesion, or say if it is a case of CP, cerebral palsy? So what happens in upper motor neuron lesion is that the child usually will have hypertonia. The tone of the muscle will be increased. There will be hypertonia. There will be hyperreflexia, right? And there will be other causes. That is, in case of CP, there is usually no antenatal or prenatal history, birth history. There is nothing like that of difficult labor or something like that. Also, a child with CP, usually what will happen is that child will present with scissoring gait. This is some of the features. There will be hypertonia, hyperreflexia, there will be scissoring gait. So our baby Jacob, he does not have a scissoring gait. He has what? He has a waddling gait. Moreover, there was nothing mentioned about hypertonia, hyperreflexia. So we can exclude CP. So say that if it was CP, what would you do? You would look into the MRI. And what are the findings in MRI? Finding will get periventricular leukomalacia. Okay. Now, is it a lower motor neuron lesion? Now, why am I saying it could be a lower motor neuron lesion? Because these cases, that is spinal muscular atrophy, spinal tumor, trauma, these can also present with delayed walking or a gait, atypical gait. Now, what happens? Why is it or is it not a lower motor neuron lesion? Now what happens in case of lower motor neuron lesion? So a child with lower motor neuron lesion will present with hypotonia, will present with hyporeflexia, and what else? A lot of things. So now let us look at the disease. For example, spinal muscular atrophy. It is a lower motor neuron lesion. What happens here is that the child will, as it is a lower motor neuron lesion, so the child will actually present with, okay, so it is a lower motor neuron lesion in case of spinal muscular atrophy. So the child is going to present with hypotonia, hyporeflexia. Along with that, it is a autosomal recessive disease, and child will present with hypotonia, hyporeflexia. There will be tongue fasciculation at birth, So how do we diagnose this? We diagnose this using genetic testing. Okay, so our baby Jacob, does he have hypotonia, hyporeflexia? Is there any tongue fasciculation? No. So we can exclude SMA, that is spinal muscular atrophy. So what happens, pathogenesis in spinal muscular atrophy, is that there is defect in the anterior horn cell. So that is the issue here, pathogenesis. Now Is it a spinal tumor here? So what happens in spinal tumor is that, of course, along with the motor neuron lesion features, that is hypotonia, hyporeflexia, the spinal nerves that are involved in that particular segment of the spinal cord will be affected. And usually if it is affecting the lower limb, it is likely to affect the bladder and the bowel. So the child will usually present with loss of sphincter control. So this child will have incontinence of urine or something. So our child here, Jacob, does not have any other symptom like that, and there is no incontinence of urine, so we can exclude that. Also, was there any history of trauma? No, so we can exclude this as well. Okay, so what would you do in case of a tumor? You would do an MRI to exclude. There was no history of trauma, so we can exclude this. Now, any child presenting with delayed walking, there is a atypical gait, and there is all these features where he's not able to walk, he's waddling, and then he's cruising around the furniture even though he's 22-month-old. So this is a matter of concern. It could also be neuromuscular disease. Now, what are the neuromuscular disease that we have to keep in mind considering his age? So we have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, that is DMD. Also we have myasthenia gravis. Now what is myasthenia gravis? Let me first talk about myasthenia gravis. So myasthenia gravis, what happens is that myasthenia gravis, it is an autoimmune disorder. Here antibodies are formed against acetylcholine receptor in the postsynaptic membrane. So as a result, this antibody will destroy all the receptors of acetylcholine, and therefore acetylcholine will not be able to act in the muscle, and what that will do, they will lead to failure of contraction of the muscle. So how the patient will present? Myasthenia gravis, the child will present as hypotonia, severe fatigability, and there will be loss of facial expression. So our child does not have anything. There is no hypotonia, there is no loss of facial expressions and all. We can exclude this case easily. So what test will you do? You will do electromyography, and you can also do the tensilon test, okay, for myasthenia, to exclude myasthenia gravis. Now another one is DMD, that is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This is a X-linked recessive disorder. It is a neuromuscular disorder. Since it is X-linked recessive, it is likely to affect, that is, it will always affect the male, and females are the carriers. So male are the sufferers, female are the carriers here. So what happens in Duchenne muscular dystrophy? They usually present early, by the age of 3 to 5 years, and the child will present with delayed walking, the child will present with lumbar lordosis, there will be waddling gait usually. So what is the defect here? So in case of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, it is autosomal X-linked recessive disease. Here there is some defect in the gene called dystrophin gene. So this dystrophin gene is responsible for producing a very important protein, sarcolemma, important protein stability. So when there is absence of dystrophin gene, that is going to lead to muscle necrosis. So when there is muscle necrosis, and as a compensatory mechanism, the body tries to fill up that space by giving fat and connective tissue. So as a result, even though there is muscle necrosis, this child will present with hypertrophy of the muscle, especially the calf muscle. So that is why the child usually presents with hypertrophy, and they also present with macroglossia. So these are some features of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, that the child will present with delayed walking, he will not be able to climb up the stairs, there will be some spine lumbar lordosis, there will be waddling gait, and a special feature is that, very important diagnostic feature, there will be calf muscle hypertrophy due to replacement by fat and connective tissue, and there will be macroglossia. So if it is DMD, what test are you going to do? Initially you will do a creatine kinase. So creatine kinase is a muscle enzyme, and it will be increased up to 10 times in case of DMD. That's a initial investigation, and for confirmation you have to do the genetic testing. Okay. Now about developmental dysplasia of the hip. So this child can also be a case of DDH. These are all the differential diagnosis that we are discussing. So what happens in case of DDH? Usually at this age the child will present with unequal leg length, also present with there will be asymmetry in the crease, there will be some creasing in the groin area, and then there will be no neurological features, that is reflexes will be absolutely intact, because this is not a neurological case, this is an orthopedic case. So is our case a DDH? No. We just saw in the case that, just look at this, the child has good muscle bulk, stable hips and equal leg length. So our child has equal leg length, so we can exclude DDH. Considering all the differential diagnoses, we come to conclusion that DMD. DMD is our answer. So what happens in Duchenne muscular dystrophy? As I told you, the child will be present with delayed walking, not yet walking. There will be a waddling gait. There is lumbar lordosis. There is good leg muscle bulk. So reflexes will be reduced in the knee. So it is a neuromuscular disease, involves the nervous system as well as the muscle. So our answer is DMD. So as you can see that even though I knew the answer, even though it's easy to crack the answer just by seeing few of the important points, but you need to make sure initially that you have all the points in mind and exclude everything. This is going to stimulate your thinking process. Okay, so you have excluded CP and I have told everything, what are the basic features of CP, how to what in primary investigation you have to do, about SMA, where is the defect, what is the investigation, about DMD, myasthenia gravis and DDH. So we have excluded everything. Okay, so our answer is here, our child is a case of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So our answer is DMD. Okay, now let's move on. So this is a picture, please excuse my very poor editing skills. This is a picture I have taken from the illustrated textbook, figure number 29.5. It is about the different neuromuscular disorders, So what happens here when there is defect in the anterior horn cell? Examples are spinal muscular atrophy, poliomyelitis. It will lead to acute flaccid myelitis. Okay, so this is the defect. When there is defect in the, so what happens in spinal muscular atrophy? That means there is a defect in the anterior horn cell of the spinal cord. Now when there is defect in the peripheral nerve, this will lead to hereditary motor sensory neuropathies, or known as Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, Guillain-Barré syndrome or Bell's palsy. Now when there is some issue, defect in the disorder of the neuromuscular junction, neuromuscular transmission, it leads to myasthenia gravis. Now what happens here? I told you that in the neuromuscular junction there is some antibody produced against acetylcholine receptor in the postsynaptic membrane. That is the issue in case of myasthenia gravis. That is the pathophysiology. Now what happens if there is issue in the muscle itself? What is the pathology? So when there is pathology in the muscle, they will present at certain disease such as Duchenne muscular dystrophy, Becker muscular dystrophy, congenital myotonic dystrophy, benign acute myositis, polymyositis, dermatomyositis, myotonic dystrophy, metabolic myopathy, congenital myopathy. So this is a very good figure. I still look at it once in a while because it's easy. You can easily remember all the neuromuscular disorders all at once. Okay. Now let us come back to our case, the next part of our case. So as you know, each of the clinical cases has a scenario and then some questions are given, and after that we have all the explanations. Now these are the questions that was given. So our first question is, which of the following is likely to be the most diagnostic value? So considering Jacob, who is 22-month-old boy with not yet walking, so there is delayed walking, there is a family history, then there is also waddling gait, calf hypertrophy, knee reflexes are reduced, lumbar lordosis. So we have diagnosed him as a case of DMD, that is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Now what happens in DMD? Which is the diagnostic test? Is it electromyography? No, we don't do electromyography. We do it in case of myasthenia gravis. Is it hip x-ray? No, hip x-ray is done in case of developmental dysplasia of the hip. So in case of DDH, if the child is more than 4 months old, we'll go for an hip x-ray. Now MRI of the spine, if it is a case of spinal tumor, spina bifida or trauma, we would go for MRI. But our child is not a case of spinal tumor or spina bifida, so we can exclude this. Muscle biopsy, okay, this is a very invasive procedure. Do we need to go through it initially? No. What about serum creatine kinase? Yes, because our case is a neuromuscular disorder and there will be muscle necrosis. So there will be increase in the serum creatinine about 10 times. So this is a very important initial investigation for DMD, and after that we can go for genetic test for confirmation. So our answer is initial which is the test likely to be of most diagnostic value is serum creatine kinase in case of DMD. Now what is the next question? Which one of the following are you most likely to find on clinical examination? Decreased anal sphincter tone. So do we find decreased anal sphincter tone in DMD? No, DMD has nothing to do with the spinal cord. There would be decreased anal sphincter tone if there is some issue in the spinal cord, but there is no issue in the spinal cord. Excluded. Decreased facial expression? No, decreased facial expressions are seen in case of myasthenia gravis. Macroglossia? Yes, macroglossia is one of the features we have seen in case of DMD. Repetitive behavior and stereotypes? No, it is seen in case of Rett syndrome. Rett syndrome is X-linked dominant disorder. Our syndrome is not Rett syndrome. Tongue fasciculations? No, tongue fasciculation is seen in case of spinal muscular atrophy. So, by conclusion, we say that DMD is the initial investigation, serum creatine kinase which will increase up to 10 times, and there is also other feature macroglossia. In short, you can remember DMD or Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a X-linked recessive disorder. So it will mainly affect the boys, female will be carriers, and there will be a defect in the dystrophin gene as I have mentioned. So the child will present with delayed walking, there will be waddling gait, he will find it hard to climb the stairs, he will cruise around the furniture, lumbar lordosis, there will be macroglossia, and there will be increase in the calf muscle bulk, or there is calf muscle hypertrophy. So remember, the calf muscle hypertrophy and macroglossia is very important feature in DMD. It will help you to differentiate. So as you can see how I have excluded all the other options and I have established DMD. It was not needed for me to do that. It is not a viva. I do not need to exclude. But you have to do it inside your mind so that you become really clear with what you are studying. So that's it about my cases, and now let us solve some recalls from these points. So if you have listened really well up to now, I'm sure you will be able to answer the recalls. And before that, I'll just show you how long was this case, and I have tried to make it shorter. I have tried to deliver it to you in the most easiest of manner. I decided not to read everything. I mean, if I open a class and if I'm taking a class and I read each and every line without explaining, without making it easy, I don't think so it's of any use. So I have decided not to read everything. I have decided to compile it in a very short version and give you a demonstration so that you can go home, open this book after seeing this video, and then judge by yourself that are you able to remember everything that I have said, or you can go and reflect on it and revise it yourself. Okay. So these were all the explanation that was given. Okay, now let us come back to our recalls. So this is a recall. I think this is 2020 recall. Baby with hypotonia diagnosed as SMA, that is spinal muscular atrophy. What is the pathological defect? So I just showed a picture. The pathological defect in spinal muscular atrophy is in the anterior horn cell. So the answer is anterior horn cell. So you see the picture, you know the answer. This is a very common question from spinal muscular atrophy. Usually they ask only two questions. What is the best treatment? Is chest therapy. And where is the defect? Pathological defect, anterior horn cell. Okay. So this is a recall from October 2017. An infant with spastic diplegia. So they mean what should the MRI show? So we know that if a child has spastic diplegia, that means child with CP, cerebral palsy. So what will be the finding in the MRI? So the finding in the MRI you should know is periventricular leukomalacia. I have mentioned this in the beginning of the video when I was talking about CP. Okay. There were some other options also, microgyri. No, there will be no microgyri in CP. Next. Next question is, in myasthenia gravis, antibodies are seen against what? So antibodies, we know that in myasthenia gravis there are some antibodies are formed against the acetylcholine receptors. Now what are the type of that receptor? They are nicotinic receptor situated in the postsynaptic membrane. So they have given option, is it muscarinic, is it nicotinic? So yes, it is nicotinic postsynaptic receptor. So how you have to solve is that, so these were certain recalls, only 3 to 4 recalls that I have decided to pick up and show it to you guys. So how you have to solve recalls is that after you complete a topic, and the most important thing, When you study neuromuscular diseases or all the diseases, nervous system and musculoskeletal system, in your mind you should actually have a clear idea about all of these cases, about DMD, about SMA, DDH, CP. Only then you will be able to exclude all the DD. Only then you will be having a very clear picture. Now, while solving recalls, what are the things that you need to keep in mind? So you see, this is a myasthenia gravis, antibody is seen against which receptor. So you have solved this question. Now recall means not only you have to go through this. Recall means you have to actually, it's like a revision. So when you see myasthenia gravis, after solving this question, you have to think, okay, myasthenia gravis is a neuromuscular disorder. Okay, what happens here? What are the signs symptoms here? Okay, what are the other neuromuscular diseases? What are the signs symptoms there? What are the common investigation there? What are the pathological feature there? So you try to interrelate. You try to relate each topic and study. That's how you have to solve recalls. Okay. So that's it about my second demo class. It was actually a topic in my introductory class, and I tried to take a very easy case, as I told you, so that it's easy for you guys. You can go back and read this case, and if you find this beneficial, and so you can judge that my classes will be good for you and I can teach well, and I'll make sure that I deliver in a way that is understandable. I mean, the effort has to be 50-50. I do not give anybody hopes that I will make you pass. If you have passed MBBS, you are 100% capable of passing any post-graduation exam. You just need the proper guidance and hard work. So with, if it's beneficial for you, do consider this, and if you liked my video, do share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.